So a bit back, I mentioned on Twitter that I had an idea for something called a meta timeline for Splatoon. And at the time, I didn't really elaborate a whole lot other than like my general idea behind it. And then I saw there was actually quite a bit of interest, something I didn't really expect. I thought this would be too niche of something that people would really be interested in. And then there was actually quite a bit of interest in it. So I ended up making a Discord server, getting some people, and we started making a rough outline as to what this would be. What you're about to watch is a clip from a stream that I did where I went into a little bit more as to what my actual thinking was and then providing a mock-up for it as well. If you're interested in providing, assisting in this sort of, there will be a link down in the description to a Discord server. From there, we're keeping track of stuff like videos, important events, things like that. And it's basically going to be the hub for the people that are looking to contribute to this project. And then it'll probably evolve into just the actual server for the website whenever it ends up becoming a thing. So with all that, I will just let the clip from my stream play. Here I have a spreadsheet already that I've been working on with somebody else. And this is just the Splatoon 1 part of it. Right now, I had documented each of the patches along with a link that has the patch notes to them. And then I created a list of important events, like basically just the tournaments from Splatoon 1. I got this because thankfully, at least back in Splatoon 1, Inkopedia had actually been documenting a fair bit of competitive tournaments. They don't do it now. Some events get put on there still, but the vast majority of tournaments aren't on there anymore. But thankfully these ones were, so I was able to get stuff like the actual dates for when these happened. And then I just have some notes like Ink or Sink. That tournament is notorious for A, not even really finishing, and B, the fact that it was the first tournament. So basically here is just right now, the idea is this to be a database where we update this and then we reference this when building the site. Somebody went through and did this for Splatoon 2. Basically, they just went and provided the dates for every patch. We don't have any important dates yet, but we have here where we have channels for it, like people have already been putting some stuff in there. That's going to be put in here as well, and then obviously when Splatoon 3 comes out, we'll have this as well. And then here I have a pretty messily put together mock-up of what in my brain the site looks like. And this was thrown together very quickly using my tablet. So these are very crude drawings, but to basically give an idea, and I have paint here as well, just to drive the point home how ghetto these are going to be designed. Basically, the first page of the site, this whole area right here, when you go to the page, it'll have each of the logos for the games, and then a logo for the site itself, and then an About button at the bottom. The About button will just lead to a page where it talks about the people that are working on the project, as well as giving a link to the Discord and any other things we decide to do. Like somebody suggested maybe I make videos that give updates. So like every month I put out a video that talks about the changes over the course of the month to have sort of like a tie-in with the actual site itself. Might do that because it's actually, I'd imagine it wouldn't be too difficult to do. Plus I'd have some people helping with this anyway. But yeah, so each of these, you would have a page for each game. So in this case, you click on Splatoon 1, then it brings up a timeline. Now, somebody brought this up in the Discord where, like, how would we have this full timeline displayed? And in my mind, it looks like it's just kind of like how this is. It's just a giant line. And then you either, with Splatoon 1, I feel like we could probably lay out the entire timeline in a simple, like, in the screen space you have. But for Splatoon 2, because the game's life is going to be over several years, as opposed to Splatoon 2 that was only 2, we might have to make it to where you have to zoom in on the timeline. But the way it currently is it starts out with a very zoomed out timeline, and you can zoom in on certain dates. And here it has these little ticks. What I have in mind is these lines that will go up at the top indicate patches that come out. So as you can see here, this one's pointing out launch date 1.2, 2.2.0, and so on and so forth. And then underneath there are lines that indicate major events, like this one's for Ludi, then Squidstorm, and so on and so forth. And then what you would do is if you clicked on the patch, so if I clicked on the 1.2, it would come out with a box that gives a very quick rundown of what the changes were. And the way I have this thought out is everything will be done with just icons. Rather than having a bunch of text, we want to have it as condensed as possible so it takes up as little space as possible, to hopefully try and make it to where, like, on mobile it would look decent. But basically would have stuff like, it would show, right here I have Ink Strike up. That would to indicate that Ink Strike got buffed. So we would have the icon for Ink Strike with the green arrow going up. Kraken, we have the icon for Kraken with the red arrow going down. And then I don't have it designed here, but I was also going to have a button on here that's like, you would click here to view the full patch notes, and that would then go back to like here, where if you clicked on 1.3, it would bring you to like the actual page that details more of what was actually changed. So this would just be a way to have very condensed version of what the patches were, just to give an overview as what changes, or what changes happened, what things got nerfed, what things got buffed. And then here we have like what a tournament would look like. So we choose Ludi, the first season of Ludi. NSTC won Division A back when it was only A, B, C, and D. So we would have stuff like this where it'd have a rundown of the winner. So it says like NSTC won Division A. And then I tried to look up who won the other divisions. I couldn't find that easily. So I just wrote X. And it would just be a list. For a normal tournament that's not Ludi, I would probably have who came in first, who came in second, who came in third, who came in fourth. And then here it's what would show up if you clicked on it. So we would click on NSTC wins Division A, and then another box would come up that has the YouTube embed of the actual match. So in this case, it would click NSTC, and it would bring up the grand finals between us at SRL versus NSTC. And you can either watch it on the site through the embed, or just click on the video again to just go straight to YouTube. And that would be for everything. So like, even if you chose like the second place, the second place would still bring you to the grand finals, obviously. Third place would bring you to like a third place game, and so on and so forth, like that. Yeah, that would be how that would work. That would also we'd have to rely on the community doing a better job at like preserving these stuff, like actually uploading these matches to YouTube. That would very much hinge on them actually doing that, which has been doing better since Splatoon 1. And then I had this idea where if you clicked on a random date in general on the timeline, it would give a rundown of what the meta was at that time. Now here it shows like 52 gal, 96 gal deco. Again, I was just drawing this on my tablet, so ignore the fact that my handwriting on this is all garbage. This would give you a rundown of what the meta was. Now here I have the same sort of up arrows and down arrows. I'm not sure if that's what we may end up doing, but this is just a simple mock-up of what I had in mind. But it would show like what's becoming more prevalent and what's becoming less prevalent. And then someone in the Discord made a good point of talking about the Western and Eastern scenes. So like, US, North America and Europe versus Japan. And so I was thinking in the top left corner of this, or maybe across the top, having buttons where you can switch between the Western scene and the Japanese scene to get an idea of how the game was different at that time. The big problem with that is, especially in Splatoon 1, we have very little documentation of what the Japanese scene was doing really early on, so it might be difficult to do that. But that is something I had in mind, was to have a button where you could get an idea of what the Japanese was doing, which would be easier to do in Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 3. But that is like the simple mock-up that I have of how the flow would work. There are probably going to be several things that change, like this probably is going to be the first thing to change. A good way to like give an idea of what the meta was. And then another thing that's on the table, and I might make a channel in here for like ideas, was someone wanted to have pages on the site where you can watch the progression of a weapon and see something become meta or become less meta. Basically, the evolution of a weapon's usage. So have like charts that would show like at launch, we have like we took like the 52 gal at launch. It's like here, and then once 52 became meta, it goes up, and then once the wall nerfs came through where showering got nerfed, then it would go down, and then once it got the wall got buffed to have more health, then it goes back up and rise this for a little bit, and then basically just like this is what I had in mind. It's probably not exactly what they were thinking, but basically just a way to actually visualize how prevalent something was and how often it was meta. And then it would have like, the dates on here as well, like whatever day it was above it. Again, that's just what I was thinking. It's probably not what they were thinking. But that could be something we would do. The problem with doing that though is it would require a lot more work to have like full pages that are just dedicated to stuff like that. It would definitely be like things that are worked on in the background rather than getting the main focus. But that is another idea for that. Yeah, that would definitely need changes to figure out what is actually being displayed there. But that was just an idea that was thrown around just so people can see like how prevalent something was, or like it's how how often it was meta or things like that. That would have to be, that's not the main focus, but it is something that could be included at some point. But this is the sort of rough overview as to what I had in mind, at least currently. So right now, what we really need is I need people to check the, here I have a list of the events that I noted as being important in like list of when they came out or when they happened. We need more people to come in and do this for Splatoon 2, and then we'll also need it to be done for Splatoon 3 as that goes on. We need people to start providing videos. That way when we click on the stuff, we can actually get the video. Ideally YouTube, so if people can like find Twitch versions of it, we can mirror it to YouTube, because Twitch can just delete stuff whenever they feel like it. Just to make things more accessible, I might put out something asking people to start actually uploading their tournament VODs and stuff to YouTube. But there's probably some other things that we might include. This isn't going to be all it does. This is just the idea of how like it fundamentally will look. Again, like I mentioned, with Splatoon 1, we could probably fit the entire timeline on one screen, just zoomed out, and then Splatoon 2 would definitely need to be zoomed out, and then you would just click around and zoom in to get a better look at like certain timelines or certain like a time period. So you would click on Splatoon 2, it'd be a very zoomed out timeline where you can't really see a whole lot, but then if you click on like 2018 and start to zoom in, then everything starts to get filled in. Then it becomes stuff you can click on and things like that. I think that would be a good way to approach these Splatoon 2 and probably Splatoon 3 that are going to have significantly longer lifespans than Splatoon 1 ever did. But thankfully, stuff like getting icons, we won't have to design those. We can just pull them from Wikipedia. The art for the arrows is super simple. The timeline, figuring out how we want the actual timeline to be displayed, like how it's going to look graphically, is something we're going to need to work on. And then everything else is more or less pretty simple. I'm debating whether or not we have team logos or just the names, because not every team has a very accessible logo. I can't just like look up. I can't just Google the logo for NSTC. I know what their logo is, but I can't just like look it up on Google. Well, maybe I can because of how popular they were. But you get my point. It's like, I don't know if I want to do logos because it might not be super accessible. And I don't know if I want to do text because it just doesn't mesh well with how everything else is just going to be a logo or an icon. I'm not too sure yet.